Okay. Yeah. So right now I live in a weird abandoned like apartment building. I lived in four different apartments already, but now I live separately. Now my mom has her own apartment and I have my own apartment. But we don't really own the apartment. We just renting it. And it's not the first time in my life that I feel afraid of sleeping at someone's house or at a different place that we live in. I remember my cousin, who was like a sister to me, when we were growing up around the age of 10 or 11. She would invite me over to play with her at her house. And of the 15 years that I lived as a teenager in Far and Alamo, never did I think I would end up alone at such a young age. Everything started because I didn't want to go to school and I would always be absent. But this was in high school, and I started skipping class because I wanted to be dating at a very young age, at the age of 13. And so when I was like when I was 15, 13, me and my cousin had met some new friends from my neighborhood, but I didn't know they were from the neighborhood until later that I started to get to know them. And but it was right there and then that I knew, that they were from around the area because they explained to us how they lived around the area. But I was so to myself that I didn't even bother asking where each and every one of them lived. But I kind of knew because they lived right around the area where I lived at that time. So right now I'm 31, and since I've been away from my ex-boyfriend, the one and only person of all the people that I've dated that I used to live with was him. He lived in a city called Las Milpas in Hidalgo Far, and I lived in Alamo when we met. His name is Jesus V. Vargas. And so he was the first person that I would sleep over at, like with no problem at all. And I wouldn't have problems with him, but one day I guess something bothered him of the things that I did, and he beat me up. And so I went back to my cousin, and lots of strange things that started to happen at her house. Unexplaining knocking would happen on the door. Weird faces would appear in the windows in the living room. Sudden light on and off in the restroom would happen. All of a sudden, the electrical fan, would turn on and off on its own without it being plugged in, and there was no air inside whatsoever. Also, some unexplaining knocking happened at one point, and we were able to see a little girl walk away from the door. But when we went to reach out to see who the person was, we didn't find anybody. And to us, it was weird because the knocking happened a few times, but a few times nobody was at the door. And to us, it was just like something that happened. But we were afraid because it was really a scary story. When we were going through that, it was scary. And so I ended up alone again, no relationships, and but he was the only person that I lived with. Jesus was the only person that I lived with that I never felt afraid of anything with. My mom and me have been through stuff at the house. We've moved a lot of times because of that, because we have situations that are not good in the house. And Also in my grandma's house when we used to live with her, and when we would go and sleep over or spend time with her, lots of weird things would happen to us there too. But since I was a little girl, when I was like 7 or 5 or 10 years old, and this happened because we used to sit outside, and owls used to appear outside in the sky at my grandma's house, not just once or twice, but like very often. And we would talk about how scary and how bad it is to be going through scary things like haunted houses, unexplainable apparitions and stuff like that. And so eventually one day we ended up moving to Alamo, and then we moved over to San Juan. And right now I'm 31 years old, and I live without my dad. But I don't know what it's like living with my dad because he left us when I was like 5, like since I was little. Yeah, and I remember that because I remember we went to go look for my dad with Jackie's family, and I remember I was like about the size of those kids that are running outside, probably probably a little, yeah, like around the size of those kids running outside. But my dad left us and he never came back. We always wanted to know why he left us, why he didn't think about us, why he didn't put us in his plans or anything. And it's already been like 10 or 12 years or 14 years since high school, and my dad hasn't came not once to look for us, not even to invite us out to eat or to give us help or anything. And I think the last time I saw my dad, I was like 18, 19, 20, probably 21, but not right now. That was way back then, like in 2015, like 2015 or 2014, like around that time. I haven't seen them in a long time. I haven't seen my dad's family in a long time. And so I'm just sitting here in my apartment wondering when I'm going to go home. When am I going to go back to my family, or when am I going to go back to work or back to my friends that's from school? I like to read and write. I like to receive letters by mail or in person from another friend. I like to gossip and chat and talk about just anything that me and my friends do outside of school or at work or at home. But I haven't worked in a long time. I haven't seen my friends in a long time. I haven't seen Vanessa, Joanna, Sabrina, Samantha, Sabrina, Jacob, Michael, Dylan, um, Melissa, Adina, Joanna, Vanessa, who else? Magali, Yesenia, Maritza, Ivan. I haven't seen a lot of my friends, Jay, Paul, Nick. I haven't seen any of them. And like, it's weird because at school everybody sees each other and everybody waves hello, or everybody talks to one another. And this time around, that didn't happen. And I lost some of my relatives and some of my friends. But when you least expect it, the person that you least expected is the one that's doing bad towards you or your family. It's always good to talk the truth and the reality, so they could see if they could help with whatever is needed.